Sofia Delgado stood on the marble terrace overlooking the sprawling gardens of the Delgado estate, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows over the perfectly manicured lawns. She wore a pale blue silk dress that caught the breeze delicately, and a smile that masked the nervous flutter in her chest. Today was a celebration, the culmination of years filled with privilege, expectations, and the unspoken understanding that this life was hers by adoption, not by birth. Her adoptive family's guest list sparkled with wealthy businessmen, socialites, and dignitaries, all there to honor Sofia's achievements as she prepared to leave for university. Yet, beneath the polished veneer of the event simmered the undercurrents of tension she'd learned to navigate with quiet grace. Victoria Delgado, the eldest daughter of the family and Sofia's unyielding shadow, circulated among the guests, eyes sharp with silent judgments. Victoria's poise was as refined as Sofia's, but behind her controlled smiles was a coldness that never quite softened for Sofia. To Victoria, Sofia was always the adopted outsider, a reminder of family secrets better left unspoken. As Sofia sipped her glass of sparkling water, she noticed a figure moving beyond the polished windows, an unfamiliar woman bent over, methodically cleaning the stone floors of the staff quarters. Sofia's heart caught unexpectedly when their eyes met for the briefest moment. The woman's face was worn, marked by years of hard work and resilience, but those eyes, dark and steady, held something Sofia recognized deep within herself. Questions swirled in Sofia's mind, unsettling the carefully constructed world she inhabited. Who was this woman? And why did the sight of her make everything Sofia thought she knew about herself suddenly seem fragile, like glass catching the fading light? The following weeks weighed heavily on Sofia Delgado's usually unshakable composure. The image of the tired woman cleaning the staff quarters, so common a sight yet now charged with a silent, electric significance, refused to fade from her mind. She had seen her birth mother, Anna, without even knowing it, and the discovery plunged her into a turmoil she couldn't easily unravel. Victoria Delgado wasted no time in asserting her dominance over Sofia, sensing the unease shadowing her step. During a lavish family dinner held in the estate's opulent dining room, its walls adorned with ancestral portraits and glittering chandeliers casting warm light over polished mahogany, Victoria's words pierced through the clinking of silverware and polite chatter like a carefully sharpened blade. Honestly, Sofia, Victoria began, her voice smooth but edged, sometimes it's hard not to forget where you came from, though clearly, you seem eager to remind us. The guests stiffened, turning their attention to Sofia, whose cheeks flamed with a mix of embarrassment and defiance. Victoria's pointed barbs were a familiar game, one she played with unerring precision, but this time the stakes felt different. Sofia struggled to maintain her usual poise, the ache in her chest growing with each passing glance. The staff and family alike exchanged quiet whispers after the remark, some shielding supportive smiles toward Sofia, others nodding with a grudging acceptance of Victoria's superiority. The undercurrent of judgment was palpable, a subtle divide etched into the social fabric of the household, and Sofia felt painfully caught between two worlds. At the center of her swirling thoughts was Anna, the woman she had glimpsed. Sofia watched the staff quarters from a discreet distance, trying to reconcile the woman's weary but dignified presence with the polished lifestyle she inhabited. Anna moved with quiet determination, tidying rooms and mopping floors with a practiced efficiency that spoke of years spent in humble labor. Despite the barriers between them, Sofia longed to reach out, to close the impossible gap. But fear tethered her words. How would Anna react if she knew her daughter saw her not as a stranger, but as family? The thought of revealing herself, of shaking the foundations of their current existence, filled Sofia with conflicting emotions, guilt, hope, and an aching sense of loss. It was during one tense afternoon that Victoria, ever vigilant, cornered Sofia near the grand staircase. Her smile was tight, predatory, eyes gleaming with calculated ease. "I heard you've been spending time near the servants' wing," she whispered, voice low but sharp. "You do realize that mixing the bloodlines, so to speak, isn't just frowned upon here. It could threaten everything you've been given." Sofia's throat tightened. The words stoked an unspoken rule she had always felt pressing on her, but never voiced so cruelly before. "I'm not sure what you're implying," Sophia replied, her voice steady but firm, refusing to back down. Victoria's smile widened, a challenge and a warning in one. "Just remember where you belong, Sophia. This family built its name on legacy and discretion, not on charity. You do well to honor that." Social pressure, sharp as a blade, carved into Sophia's resolve. Guests overheard fragments of their exchange in hushed tones. The seeds of scandal seemed poised to sprout amid the estate's grandeur. Sophia sensed the room growing smaller, her place more precarious. Meanwhile, Anna remained a quiet enigma. She kept her distance, as if honoring an unspoken boundary, giving no sign that she recognized Sophia's presence or that any bond connected them. Her days blurred into routine labor, and the few conversations she shared with other staff were tinged with a respectful reserve. Despite the walls built by roles and silence, Sophia couldn't ignore the pull. One evening, as the house settled into the hush of twilight, she lingered near the kitchen, where staff gathered before their shifts ended. The air was thick with scents of fresh herbs and warm bread, sounds of soft laughter mingled with murmured stories of days past. Sophia caught herself hesitating outside the break room, heart pounding as she debated whether to enter. What could she possibly say? How would Anna respond? Would this break the invisible barrier, or shatter it irreparably? Her hand hovered over the door until a sharp voice startled her. "You shouldn't be here," came Victoria's tone, cold and commanding from the shadows. Sophia turned to meet her gaze, seeing the edge of disdain carved deep within. "I wanted to speak with someone," Sophia said quietly, choosing her words with care. Victoria stepped forward, eyes blazing. "Some things aren't yours to claim, especially when they involve those who serve beneath us. Remember that." Sophia's fingers clenched at her sides, fighting back the sting of humiliation. Yet beneath the surface burned a flicker of defiance, growing stronger with each indignity. The delicate balance of the household began to tremble. The whispers grew louder, allies and adversaries revealing themselves in subtle gestures and sidelong glances. Some sympathized with Sophia's plight, others viewed her actions as reckless, threatening the family's aura of perfection. One afternoon in the garden, a few trusted friends approached Sophia, their voices hushed but earnest. "You're treading dangerous ground," a close aunt warned gently. "Victoria will not hesitate to isolate you if she feels her place threatened." Another whispered, "But Anna's story, there's more beneath the surface. You owe it to yourself to find out." Caught between caution and curiosity, Sophia knew her next steps would shape more than just relationships. They could redefine her identity. Her nights, once filled with dreams of promise, now pulsed with uncertainty. Could she challenge the rigid walls of privilege that held her in place? Could she bridge the chasm between the life she'd known and the one Anna represented? As autumn leaves began to fall, Sophia's resolve solidified. It was no longer enough to observe from afar, she needed answers, even if those questions stirred discomfort and risked ostracism. But the deeper she delved, the clearer it became that Victoria's resistance would harden. At the next family gathering, Victoria's gaze bore into Sophia like a hawk preparing to strike. "You must choose," Victoria said softly during a rare, confrontational moment. "Between your place in this family and your affiliations with those who serve. There is no room for both." Sophia's breath caught. It was an ultimatum, a line drawn in the polished marble halls and whispered corridors. The room seemed to close in, every eye watching the silent exchange, waiting. In that moment, Sophia knew the struggle wasn't merely about status, it was a battle for her own definition, for the courage to claim every part of herself without apology or fear. Have you ever had to choose between two worlds? What would you do when faced with a division so stark? These questions echoed in Sophia's mind as she prepared for the inevitable confrontation that lay ahead. Sofia Delgado sat alone in the quiet sanctuary of her bedroom, the soft glow of the evening casting long shadows over the ornate furniture. Outside, the estate continued its steady hum of nightly activity, the distant clink of glassware, murmurs of guests winding down from social gatherings. Yet within these walls, Sophia wrestled with a swirl of emotions: confusion, hurt, determination, each one threatening to swallow the other. Since Victoria's stark ultimatum at the latest family event, a weight pressed upon Sophia's chest. The choice set before her was clear, but impossible: reject part of herself to secure her place, or embrace the whole truth and risk forfeiting the life she had been raised to cherish. She had spent countless hours poring over what little she knew about Anna, her birth mother, a woman who had surrendered her, not out of indifference, but to shield Sophia from shadowed dangers long buried. Sophia's resolve grew steadily, fueled by scraps of conversation and quiet observations in the kitchens and corridors. Each revelation brought clarity, but also a thicker fog of doubt that she couldn't easily dismiss. The estate staff's reaction to Sophia's visits was a mixed tapestry. Some offered discreet smiles, gestures of encouragement that bolstered her resolve, while others whispered warnings veiled in concern. Yet, worst of all was the growing isolation within her own family. Victoria's influence cast long shadows, and the subtle ways the adoptive family's alliances shifted left Sophia teetering on the brink. One evening, Sophia overheard a conversation that chilled her to the bone. Passing quietly near the opulent study where Victoria held court with two influential family friends, she caught fragments of their words. "Cut her hours," Victoria insisted, voice silk over steel, "and make an example. If Anna feels the pressure, she'll keep her distance." "Risks bringing scandal," another murmured. "But she must learn her place." The cruelty was deliberate, calculated to silence, to punish not just Anna, but Sophia by association. The estate's glittering facade concealed a harsh reality for those denied power. For days that followed, Sophia observed Anna's hours shortened, her tasks growing heavier despite fewer helping hands. The woman's once steady hands trembled more, and Sophia's heart cracked each time she passed Anna's stooped figure retreating into the shadows. The injustice stoked an unrelenting fire in Sophia's soul, one she could no longer ignore. A restless night found Sophia journaling by candlelight, her thoughts pouring out in words raw and honest. "I can't lose her again, not to their cruelty, to their narrow eyes. But where do I begin when my own family sees her as nothing more than a servant?" Her reflection stared back at her from the mirror, eyes searching, questioning. Doubt whispered its poisonous doubts. Was she merely a spoiled heiress flailing against rules she had once accepted without thought? Could she truly cross the invisible gulf dividing privilege from humility? Yet beneath the questions, a steady heartbeat of strength persisted. Sophia reached out to a trusted confidant, Elena, a longtime family friend known for her wisdom and kindness. Their meeting was arranged in the quiet library, far from prying eyes. "Elena," Sophia began, her voice tinged with urgency, "I feel trapped. Victoria's determined to isolate me, but my connection to Anna, it's who I am. How do I stand my ground when so many want me to fold?" Elena's gaze softened, her fingers threading through a strand of silver hair. "Sophia, true strength isn't in perfect appearances or inherited titles. It's in accepting all parts of yourself, the past, the present, and everything else that lives in between. No one owns your story but you." That afternoon planted a seed of resolve deep within Sophia's heart. She began to take small, deliberate steps, not only visiting Anna more openly but advocating subtly for her among sympathetic staff and relatives. These actions, though quiet, rattled the fragile balance of the household. Victoria's response was swift and merciless. At the next grand gathering, she exposed Sophia's secret visits to Anna during a pointed toast, her voice dripping with disdain. "Let us all toast to honesty," Victoria declared, glass raised high. "Some of us prefer to live with eyes wide open, unafraid to mingle among those who serve. Others cling desperately to appearances." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, guests shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Sophia's cheeks burned, but she held Victoria's gaze, steady and unflinching. In that charged moment, the divide between privilege and servitude cracked wide open, exposing the raw nerves beneath. As the evening faded into the lingering chill of midnight, Sophia found herself wandering the estate's quieter corridors. The distant gleam of the moonlight washed over the hedges and fountains, reflections fractured on the ripples of the ornamental pond. Amid the silence, a new realization settled in her bones. This battle was far from over. The revelation of Victoria's plot to curtail Anna's hours and impose punitive measures deepened the injustice swirling around them. But it also exposed the narrowness of vision that sought to bind them all, a vision Sophia was increasingly determined to shatter. In a rare moment of courage intertwined with vulnerability, Sophia sought out Anna directly. The meeting was hesitant at first, the two women navigating walls built by years of separation and silence. Anna's eyes, worn but vibrant with resilience, met Sophia's with a mixture of pain and pride. "I never wanted you to suffer," she admitted softly. "Giving you up was the hardest choice of my life. I stayed close, watching, protecting you from afar." Sophia's breath caught, the weight of years pressing between them. "I need to understand everything," she whispered. "Not just for me, but for us." That connection, fragile yet profound, sparked a tentative alliance. Sophia's heart found new depths of empathy, and urged her to fight not just for herself, but for Anna's dignity in a household where she was rendered invisible. But even as hope flickered, dangers loomed. Word of their growing bond slipped like wildfire through the estate's grapevine, stirring whispers and veiled warnings. Sophia realized that the path ahead demanded a strength that went beyond social graces, a resilience born of love and a fierce refusal to be defined by narrow expectations. She was poised on the brink of transformation, a young woman forging her identity amid a storm of prejudice and unspoken truths. If you believe in standing up for what's right, reflect on this story and share your thoughts on how courage shapes us all. The air within the grand hall was thick with the buzz of conversation and clinking glasses as the estate prepared for another lavish gala. Sofia Delgado moved through the crowd with a composed poise that belied the tumult roiling within her. Tonight was not merely another social event, it was the stage upon which she intended to confront the truths that had long been confined to whispered corners and furtive glances. She had spent the weeks leading up to this night cautiously orchestrating a private meeting with Anna, her birth mother. The conversation they shared in the dimly lit parlor of the staff quarters had been a quiet unveiling of painful memories, sacrifices, and enduring love. Anna had confided in Sophia the reasons behind her choice, why she had given Sophia up for adoption. It was to protect her from a perilous scandal that once threatened their family, a secret muted in time but powerful in its consequences. Anna's presence in the household as a maid was a silent vigil, a means of shielding Sophia from harm she herself could not confront openly. The revelation transformed Sophia's understanding of her origins. No longer a tale of abandonment, but one of protection cloaked in secrecy and unspoken courage. Despite the profound bond formed, the fragile peace between mother and daughter was abruptly shattered. Victoria, the family's eldest daughter and relentless antagonist, had been lurking nearby during their meeting. Hearing fragments of their conversation, a spark of cruel calculation lit within her eyes. Determined to humiliate Sophia and Anna alike, Victoria seized the gala as the perfect opportunity to unveil the secret to the entire assembled family and social circle. Just as the orchestra softened between movements, and the room was steeped in attentive silence, Victoria stepped forward with a raised glass, her voice slicing through the murmurs. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began with icy clarity. "I believe tonight is the moment for some uncomfortable truths to be acknowledged. It seems our dear Sophia's illustrious lineage is more complicated than many of us imagined." Heads turned, confusion rippling through the crowd like a sudden gust. Victoria's eyes locked arrogantly onto Sophia's, then shifted to Anna, who stood still in the background, her face pale but dignified. "The woman who has tended our household for all these years," Victoria continued, "is none other than Sophia's birth mother. A fact our darling Sophia has taken pains to keep hidden, perhaps out of shame, or misplaced affection." The room erupted into whispers, some voices sharp with scandal, others hushed with curiosity. Shock-painted faces across the room, the polished veneer of the Delgado family's reputation cracked before the eyes of guests and relatives alike. Sophia's heart thundered as she stood, her voice steady though her palms trembled. "Yes," she acknowledged, meeting the collective gaze. "Anna is my mother. And I am proud of her." Anna's eyes glistened with unshed tears, yet she held her head high amidst the sudden tidal wave of attention. The atmosphere was electric. Shifts occurred not only within the family but also among the estate's staff. Whispers of support bubbled beneath the surface, while others avoided eye contact, unwilling to confront the unfolding upheaval. Victoria's smirk faltered in the face of Sophia's unyielding dignity. The revelation, meant as a weapon, instead exposed Victoria's own desperation and cruelty. Among the stunned attendees, alliances quietly reformed. Relatives and long-standing friends who had witnessed Sophia's quiet strength exchanged nods of solidarity. The staff, emboldened by Sophia's stance, found renewed courage as well. Yet, the battle was far from won. As the evening proceeded, Sophia sensed eyes watching her with new respect, and with newfound prejudice. The delicate fabric of acceptance was being rewoven, and she stood at its center, a figure both exposed and empowered. Late that night, as the estate settled into a fragile calm, Sophia reflected on the events. The assault on her identity had been harsh, but it had shattered illusions about power and control within the family. A reckoning had begun. She gathered with Anna and a handful of trusted allies, staff members who had long harbored quiet hopes for justice, and relatives who valued truth above appearance. The conversation was tentative but charged with resolve. "We cannot let this moment fade into silence," Sophia said firmly. "Our voices must be heard, and the dignity of those who serve must be respected." Anna nodded, her expression a blend of weariness and fierce hope. Among her supporters was Luis, the estate's longtime gardener, whose own experiences with discrimination lent weight to Sophia's cause. "We've endured too long under the shadow of shame and secrecy," Luis said. "Tonight, that changes." Yet, even as solidarity blossomed, Sophia recognized the road ahead would be fraught with resistance. Victoria's influence remained substantial, and many within the family clung to outdated hierarchies and prejudices. A subtle undercurrent of tension hummed beneath the gala's elegant surface, a reminder that transformation required persistence and courage. Sophia's gaze met those of her allies, a silent pact forged in shared conviction. The days to come would test them all. When secrets come to light, how should we respond? Should we retreat behind walls of discomfort, or face the challenge with open hearts and unwavering resolve? These questions lingered, inviting reflection as Sophia prepared for the inevitable confrontation that awaited. Within her, a renewed strength took root, a quiet, steadfast determination to reclaim her identity and dignity, and to forge a path that embraced truth in its fullest measure. The evening's revelations had opened the door. Now, Sophia was ready to walk through it. The grand ballroom buzzed with an air of anticipation as guests began arriving for the annual charity gala hosted by the Delgado family. Crystal chandeliers shimmered overhead, casting prismatic light onto the polished floors, while the soft strains of a string quartet floated through the cavernous space. Yet beneath the surface elegance, something had shifted, an undercurrent of tension that even the most refined guests seemed to sense. Sofia Delgado stood near the entrance, her blue silk dress flowing gracefully as she looked out at the gathered crowd. Her posture was steady, her gaze clear. The journey that had brought her here was fraught with challenges, painful truths, and moments of profound self-discovery. Tonight, she knew, was a turning point, not only for her, but for the entire Delgado legacy. Victoria Delgado, the family's proud eldest daughter, had yet to arrive. Sophia didn't expect her to come quietly. The last weeks had been filled with whispers and subtle power plays. Victoria had attempted to undermine Sophia at every turn. But tonight, Sophia resolved, was her moment to reclaim her narrative and expose the cruelty that had ruled so long in shadows. As the program began, Sophia requested the microphone. The room's gentle murmur quieted, curious eyes turning toward her. "I stand before you all not only as Sofia Delgado, the young woman you have known," she began, voice steady and carrying through the hall, "but as someone who has come to understand the true meaning of identity, family, and honor." She spoke of Anna, her birth mother, a woman of strength and sacrifice whose love had transcended barriers, who had endured hardship quietly while safeguarding Sophia's future. She addressed the harsh judgments, the divides enforced by class and pride, and the necessity of compassion over cruelty. Victoria entered then, her entrance met with a ripple of surprise. Eyes turned as she made her way with a calculated grace, taking a seat near the front, her expression a mask of controlled disdain. Sophia met her gaze without flinching. "In this family," Sophia continued, "we have long upheld images of perfection. But perfection is a fragile illusion when built on exclusion and silence. It is time for us to acknowledge the depth and diversity of what makes us whole." Her words resonated, eliciting nods from some of the elder relatives, while others shifted uncomfortably. Victoria rose, her voice sharp but forced calm. "Sophia, you have broken trust and exposed what's best left private." "No," Sophia replied, her tone unwavering, "I have invited honesty and inclusion. True strength is found in embracing every truth, not hiding it." A collective breath seemed to sweep through the room. The scales of privilege and prejudice trembled, the old order tipping. Among those in attendance were family friends and staff members who had quietly borne witness to the tales of courage and kindness hidden behind the estate's grandeur. Their eyes gleamed with newfound respect as Sophia's courage illuminated the very essence of the family's future. Later, in softer moments, several relatives approached Sophia with apologies and gestures of support. The atmosphere shifted subtly but unmistakably. Victoria's carefully constructed fortress began to crumble under the weight of her own callousness made visible. Outside, Anna stood just beyond the entrance hall, surrounded by staff members whose faces glowed with admiration. Luis, the gardener, smiled warmly, addressing the group. "Tonight shows us that dignity isn't a privilege of birth, it is a right we must all honor." Anna's eyes met Sophia's, and in that gaze was a quiet victory, recognition beyond words. Days passed, and the once awkward banter in the halls softened into genuine smiles. Boundaries blurred, and respect flourished where suspicion and scorn had lived. Sophia and Anna began to rebuild their relationship openly, weaving threads of trust and affection into the fabric of daily life at the estate. Friends and even hesitant relatives witnessed this transformation, reminded that love and acceptance transcend status and history. Victoria was left to reckon privately with her losses, her isolation a mirror of the cruelty she had chosen. The family, shaken but wiser, gradually embraced a more inclusive vision. Sophia's journey had not been easy, but standing tall in the face of prejudice and fear, she had reclaimed her identity, not as a product of wealth alone, but as a woman of resilience, compassion, and unyielding truth. As she walked through the gardens one evening, the scent of blooming jasmine filling the air, Sophia reflected on all she had learned. Identity, she realized, is not shaped by titles or wealth but by the courage to accept oneself wholly. If this story moved you, like and subscribe for more inspiring stories. See you in our next story.